Aloha.
My name is Mishalonri Kauilani Aloha Trainer. On the ballot, my name is Mishalonri Trainer, but everybody calls me Kau'i. I'm the Kau'i that Nanakila was referring to. I hope I can live up to his expectations. I want to tell you who I am. But I also want to tell you what's important to know. And even though there are some of us that do have a particular stance, that we have an adamant stance, I'm going to tell you why we have that adamant stance. In August, I was just like you guys. I didn't know a lot about what was going on, Na'i Aupuni, I didn't know what was going on. So I decided to educate myself, and that's why you guys are here. Mahalo. So I read the proposed rules from the DOI. I read them, all of them. I read it about 15 times now. And I want to tell you something. You got to read this. If you want to understand why the process is going where it's going, then you cannot not read this. The DOI proposed rules are going to determine a lot about our future, and I'll tell you why. There are a couple of processes that you need to understand. The first is this delegate elections that's going on. The purpose of these elections is to write a governing document, a constitution. According to the DOI proposed rules, they have a name for it. It's called a Native Hawaiian governing document. Now, if you know the Akaka Bill, if you've read the Akaka Bill, the language is the same. The language is the same, and I'll tell you why. Because the way laws are made, the way that statutes are made is that different groups, they get together and they create this language, and then the language is given to Congress or to legislators, and they work through the language, and then they put it out as a commentary to the public, and then the public responds, and then they change the language. But the language comes from people. The language comes from organizations. And all of those organizations that worked towards the Akaka Bill, that language came out in the DOI proposed rules. Same language. So this election to go for delegates is to form this Native Hawaiian governing document. Now, they're saying in the DOI rules that whatever the document is, it can be whatever we like. We can choose whatever we like. Auntie is right. We can choose however we want to put it. We can make any kind of government that we want. But if we go for federal recognition, it has to meet these rules. All of these rules have to be met. If you want federal recognition, you have to meet our rules. And in our rules, this is what it says. Upon re-establishment of the formal government-to-government relationship, the Native Hawaiian governing entity will have the same government-to-government relationship under the United States Constitution and federal law as the government-to-government relationship between the United States and a federally recognized tribe in the continental US. What that means is the hundreds of years of law that are over all of those American Indian tribes, all spelled out in the Felix Handbook of American Law, is what they're going to hold us to. No, we're not going to be an Indian tribe, but we're going to be held to the same standards as them. And what else does that mean? Number 2, this is from the DOI rules. Native Hawaiian governing entity will be subject to Congress's plenary authority. That means that the Congress will trump any decision that we make. In the Akaka Bill, it spelled it out very clearly that any decisions that our Native Hawaiian governing entity are going to make, the state and the federal government have the say, have the final say. So how do we think that we're going to ever get any of our lands back if they have the final say? How are we going to get it back? Number 3, absent federal law to the contrary, any member of the Native Hawaiian governing entity will be eligible for current federal Native Hawaiian program services and benefits. But if you are not a member, If you've withdrawn your name from the roll to be a member of this entity, then guess what? You don't qualify. You're not eligible. Essentially what it says is that if you don't become a member of this Native Hawaiian governing entity, then you're not Hawaiian. Then you're American. And you gotta, if you want to go get loans, if you want to go get scholarships, then you gotta go the American route, which is not bad. You can do it. I did it. But you cannot qualify for any of the Native Hawaiian programs. So you gotta be a member of this governing entity. Number D, you're not going to be qualified for any federal Indian programs. So this is where they're saying you're not going to be Indians. Yeah, they're right. We're not going to be Indians and we're not going to get any of their money. But we're going to be held to the same laws as them, for sure. The next one. Native Hawaiian governing entity cannot sell, dispose of, lease, or encumber Hawaiian homelands, or interest in those lands, or diminish any Native Hawaiians' rights, protections, or benefits, including any immunity from the state or local taxation granted by the HHCA, HHLRA, the Act of 1959, which is the Statehood Act, and then the Apology Bill. So if you think we're going to get back our Native Hawaiian lands, our DHHL lands, we cannot lease it, we cannot sell it, we cannot change it. And elsewhere in the DOI proposed rules it says that no matter what happens, if a governing entity gets formed, those lands are already protected. Now I'm going to ask you, what's the point of us going for federal recognition and for protection of those rights and protections of those lands and programs if we already protected? The rules say it themselves. They already protected, so why are we going for this? This is the most important one. Re-establishment of the formal government-to-government relationship will not affect the title, jurisdiction, or status of federal lands and property in Hawaii. We're not going to get back our lands. So I'm going to tell you right now, I support the process. I support voting. I support the delegates discussing whatever they like. I support them coming up with a constitution. In my view, it should be the 1840 Constitution. But if that language in that, whatever comes out, that document comes out, is for federal recognition, I'm going to ask you guys to vote no. Amen. I'm going to ask you to use your vote to vote no. Because federal recognition is going to harm us. Amen. And we will not be able to litigate against the state or federal governments. We will not be able to get our lands back. And we will cut off our community. The programs that serve our Hawaiian people will be diminished. They will only serve the members, not the non-members. And so I'm asking you to pay attention to the language in this document that comes out. And if you go vote, you better vote for the right one. Make up your mind and read it. And anything else, I know I gotta stop now. I'm gonna tell you one more thing. When I got involved in the Mauna Care program, in the movement, I had many confirmations from my kupuna and from my ampukua that I needed to do that. But one of the most important things that I found out by being involved in the movement was that my ohana came from Waipio. We always thought that we were from Ni'aha, Kauai, and Maui. But I discovered that my ohana came from Waipio. And that we all related. And my ohana, they signed that ku'e petition too. And when the 1959 Statehood Act came, it was my ohana that voted no. Now we can boycott the process. That's makai. But if you're going to strategize, you got to pay attention to the language. Because they're going to use the language against us. And so pay attention and use your vote wisely. Mahalo.